呢個閱讀理解咧就係講 Sasha 嘅 serf 咧係解乜嘢咧？係一個農奴，即係一個奴隸。It was nearing the end of a September day. Old Gregory and his grandson Sasha were returning home through the forest with their bundles of wood. 咁即係話呢一個係一個祖父啦，因為佢話佢同佢嘅 grandson 啊嘛，咁就即係從個森林翻嚟拎住好多木啦。The old man stood low under the weight of the heavier pieces he was carrying, while the boy dragged his great bunch of twigs and splints by a rope drawn over his shoulder. 咁就係解乜嘢咧？就話個老啲嗰個即係佢嗰個阿爺咧，就要彎身，因為佢將嗰啲好重嘅嘢咧就孭咗喺個背脊度啦。而個男仔咧就拉住嗰堆嘅即係細枝或者係啲薄木條咧，就用個膊頭就用條繩用嚟拉住喺個膊頭度拉。Where the trees grew thick, the air was already quite gloomy. But in the open spaces they could see the sky and tell that the sunset was close at hand. 咩叫 close at hand 咧？即係話意思咧，就係話即係話啲即係樹木越嚟越濃厚啦。咁然後咧就感覺上越嚟越黑啦。咁同埋咧就佢望去出邊有個 open spaces， 即係話咧喺一啲空曠嘅地方咧，佢依然見到個即係個天空咁，即係That means 係未曾係夜晚，但係咧黃昏都就嚟到啦。咁即係可想而知，佢哋應該係由朝頭早拉到夜晚啦。佢嘅意思係 Both were silent for they were tired。呢一個咧 for 係解咩咧？等於 because。咁點解佢哋好靜咧？就係因為佢哋好攰啦，因為拎住咁多嘅樹枝啊、樹木啊嘅嘢。It is not easy to talk and carry a heavy load at the same time.But presently something grey appeared through the trees at the foot of a low hill. It was the rock where they always rest on their way home. 咁咧就係話咧 presently 即係嗰陣時啦，嗰一刻啦，即係頂啦，就有啲灰色嘅嘢喺佢哋嘅前邊，原來係一個石頭，而佢哋通常咧都係翻屋企途中咧都會坐喺個石頭度休息嘅。Old Gregory laid down his bundle there and wiped his face on the sleeve of his brown jacket. But Sasha sprang up onto the rock and began to balance himself upon one foot, as was his habit whenever he tried to think about something. 咁好啦，咁佢哋就坐喺個石頭休息啦。咁而 Old Gregory 即係阿爺咧，就將佢嗰個 bundle， 即係佢本身擺喺嗰個嘅擺佢係點樣咧？佢係孭住嘅，得唔得？咁但係咧，佢而家就放低咗啦。And wiped his face， 即係抹面啦，用佢嗰件灰色嘅衫咧，就嘅衫袖啊 ，sleeve 即係衫袖，用個衫袖咧去抹一抹塊面，即係流好多汗嘛。But Sasha sprang up onto the rock， 即係點樣咧？呢個係跳。Sprang 係 spring 嘅 past tense， 就跳上去石頭嗰度咧，就點樣咧？Tried and began to balance himself upon one foot， 即係用一隻腳咧去平衡自己。咁你睇見佢咧好有活力嘅，咁而佢阿爺咧就好攰咁坐喺度休息抹汗。咁樣咧，佢點解要即係用一隻腳去即係單腳去企喺個石頭上邊咧？就係點解咧？即係因為呢一個習慣啦。As was his habit whenever he tried to think about something。Think about anything， 佢任何嘢，當佢諗嘢嗰陣時咧，佢都會即係用一隻腳去單腳咁企，然後咧就喺度，其實佢係諗緊嘢。Grandfather, he said at last, why does all this forest belong to the Baron and none to it to you？ 咁佢咧就好有智慧咁問咧，就話點解成個森林都係屬於個男爵，唔係屬於你嘅咧？點解咧？ Gregory looked at him sharply for a moment before he answered。好啦，佢點解要好即係 look at 佢個 grandson？ 點解要望住佢個孫，然後跟住停咗一輪咧？因為其實我諗佢都答唔到，或者佢都覺得好難答。咁個原因就係乜嘢咧 ？It was his father's and his grandfather's before him. It has been the property of that family for centuries. We have never had any land. 咁即係話啦，頭先睇題目都講話佢哋係一個奴隸啊嘛。咁而呢啲佢啲奴隸一般嚟講都唔會擁有財產嘅。咁但係點解咁嗰個即係其實個孫好有智慧就話點解佢哋會有財產而佢哋個家人就冇啦？咁佢阿爺就唯有之後答話，即係話因為點解個 Baron 會有咧？就係佢阿爸啦、佢阿爺啦，之前佢一直已經擁有呢啲財產啦。咁於是咧就所以一路咁樣 pass on 俾佢啲孫，咁而所以呢個現在嘅男爵咧就擁有好多地，而佢哋係奴隸咧，所以咧就冇地嘅噃。 I know that, grandfather, said Sasha, but how did it come to be so at first? 咁佢好有智慧就問點解一開始點解即係佢哋兩個都係人，點解人哋會可以擁有一啲地而佢哋唔可以呢？ Gregory shook his head. You might as well ask how the world was made. Then, seeing that the boy looked troubled, he added in a kinder tone. 咁跟住佢阿爺咧就解釋啦，就係話呢個世界就係咁樣噶啦，咁樣。Sasha, what put such a thought in your head？ 即係話究竟點解無端端你會諗起一啲咁嘅嘢㗎？咁佢問佢個孫嘞噃。佢 Why the forest itself? Replied the boy. The barren lets us have the top branches and little twigs。即係話咧。嗰個男爵就俾一啲即係自己俾啲樹枝啊，俾啲小嘅樹枝佢哋啊。But he takes all the great logs 即係啲大嘅木啦 ，and trunks 即係嗰啲嘅樹幹啦。OK，but he takes all the great logs and trunks for himself and sells them for money. I know all the trees and he does not. I can find my way through the woods anywhere, and there's many a tree that would say to me if it could talk.I'd rather belong to you than to the baron, because I know you and I don't know him。即係話佢話如果啲樹木啊，佢話好多啲樹木如果識講嘢啊 ，if they could talk， 如果識講嘢咧，佢就會同呢一個 Sasha 講話，我想屬於你，就唔想屬於嗰個 baron。OK，I'd rather belong to you than to the baron。即係話我想係屬於你，我都唔想屬於個 baron，因為佢都唔識呢個 baron 究竟係邊個。呢個男爵係從來都冇入過去森林，只會叫人去斬木，跟住斬咗啲木咧，斬咗啲樹咧，然後就去賣，得到啲錢咁樣。咁你會留意到咧，佢話 There's many a tree that would say to me if it could talk。你見唔見到呢個用 could 同埋 would 咁提翻你咧？呢個咧就係一個 conditional to 嘅用法啦，就係話如果你識啲樹識講嘢，佢哋就會同我講。咁其實呢一句咧。基本上就係話一個 unreal situation 唔係真嘅情況啦，就係話其實樹係唔會講嘢噶嘛，正常嚟講。咁所以咧就係話，如果啲樹識講嘢嘅話，佢就會同我講話，我唔想做嗰個 baron 嘅樹木啊，我想做你嘅樹木啊咁樣。Yes, and the moon would say the same to you, boy, and the sun and the stars perhaps. You might as well want to own them even though you don't even belong to yourself。咁樣咧，佢阿爺就講一啲好有智慧嘅説話，就係話佢話可能個月亮都想話係屬於你啦，太陽啦，甚至星星啊，但係咧，you might as well want to own them， 即係話你想擁有一樣嘢，但係其實咧，連你自己都唔係屬於你自己㗎，咁嘅意思。咁呢個好深奧嘅一個即係哲學嘅道理啦。咁啊 ，Gregory's words seemed harsh and fierce, but his voice was very sad。嗱，即係佢阿爺咧就好嚴厲啦，同埋好似好惡咁樣，但係其實佢又好即係好悲傷咁樣講呢句説話喎。This did not seem fair 即係唔公平 at all. The boy looked at him and didn't know what to say, but his heart was beating violently. All at once, he heard a rustle among the dead leaves and a sound as if of footsteps approaching. Approaching means coming.突然間咧，好似啲即係喺啲葉上面有人沙沙聲，即係means有人行過嚟啦。咁同埋有啲腳步咧係嚟緊。The old man took hold of his grandson's arm and made a sign for him to be silent， 即係叫佢咧唔好講嘢啦。The sound came nearer and nearer, and presently they could distinguish some dusty object moving towards them through the trees。咁跟住咧就發覺原來有一個人咧漸漸咁樣行近佢哋。咁邊個咧？文章就冇再講啦。咁呢個第一條問題咯喎 ，Why were Gregory and Sasha silent at first？ 點解佢哋兩個會開頭好靜咧？咁就係因為咧，你會見到佢有講過話呢一度咧，就係 both were silent for they were tired. It is not easy to talk and carry a heavy load at the same time。咁原因就係因為唔可以一路行咧，就一路去拎住咁多嘢又講嘢咧，就好攰，所以就冇可能去講好多嘢啦，所以佢哋就好靜。咁你會寫翻咧，就係應該係 This was because they 咁佢話 for they were tired 嘛，咁所以咧就 because this was because they were tired at first and it was not easy to talk and carry heavy load at the same time， 即係話咧唔容易一路講嘢，一路又拎住一啲好嘢啦，咁所以佢哋咧就好靜啦。第二題啦 ，Why does Sasha think that he should own the forest？ 點解佢應該要擁有呢個森林啦？咁其實佢就好簡單嘅，就係覺得點解咧？就係話因為咧，佢對呢個森林好熟悉咯。咁佢有講過咧，就係話原因就係話佢係 I know all the trees and he does not. I can find my way through the woods anywhere and there's many a tree that would say to me if they could talk。 呢一度啦，就係話佢想即係啲樹都想屬於佢，唔想屬於個 Baron。咁所以咧，你就會答翻就係話佢對個森林好熟悉啦，兼且咧就係有啲樹咧都係想佢覺得啲樹咧都係想屬於佢，唔想屬於嗰個 Baron 嘅。咁你會寫翻咧就會係 this is 啦，題目問你 does， 所以你寫翻 this is because he knows the forest better than the Baron and he thinks that the trees would like to belong to him, not to the Baron as well。 係啦，咁同埋咧，即係佢覺得佢對於個森林好熟悉啦，熟悉過個 Baron 啦，兼且咧佢覺得啲樹咧係會想係屬於佢嘅，唔係想屬於個 Baron。第三題啦 ，According to Gregory, how did the Baron come to own the forest？ 即係話佢點解會擁有個森林，而 Gregory 同埋佢個孫就只係一個奴隸咧？咁跟住咧，佢就有解釋過咧，就話乜嘢咧？係因為乜嘢？係佢個呢度就係講咗，就係話it was his father's and his grandfather's before him, and it has been the property of that family for centuries。就係因為咧，佢哋咧係好耐之前咧已經係擁有呢塊地㗎啦。咁你就會寫翻咧，就會係你會寫翻啦。究竟點解會有咧？你會寫翻 The Baron came to own the forest as it 好啦 was passed。佢係由邊個？係佢父母 passed on to him by his father。又或者係 it was the property of the Baron's family。係啦，就係屬於佢哋個家人嘅，咁所以咧就會係所以就係佢哋擁有個森林啦。咁另外 Baron 呢一個咧，頭先呢一度應該係細草嚟嘅。咁另外呢個都係。好啦，接住咧就到第四題啦。What does the type of wood Gregory and Sasha are carrying suggest about their status？ 咩叫 status 咧？即係佢哋嗰個嘅社會地位，佢哋嘅地位，即係佢哋係咩人啦？咁佢係拎住啲咩類型嘅木啦？咁你會見到啦，頭先咧就係話乜嘢啊 ？They 嗱，你會見到 what does the type of wood 啦嚇，咁你會見到咧係你要講咗佢哋係拎住啲咩 wood 先啦 ，they 嗰啲木先啦 ，they are carrying， 佢哋拎住啲乜嘢啊？佢一開始就講話佢哋係 carrying呢度有講話啦，佢哋係 carrying twigs and splints， 得唔得？仲有咧。佢哋係會擁有一啲 branches 同埋 twigs， 呢度都有再講咗一次㗎。咁所以咧，你就會講話，你會再講翻咧，就係 they are carrying small branches and twigs。twigs 即係小樹枝咁嘅意思啦。So they are of low status， 即係佢哋嘅社會地位係應該比較低啦。咁亦都可以答埋咧 ，unlike the Baron, he who has the who has the 乜嘢咧？佢話佢喺文章裏邊咧講過話咧，個 Baron 有乜嘢啊？有嗰啲 logs and trunks。咁佢呢度咧就會係你或者夾埋佢一句咧，就 They are carrying small branches and twigs, so they are of low status。跟住之後咧就係喺呢度可以係應該係 comma，unlike the Baron who has the logs and trunks of the forest。好啦，第5題啦。How are the characters of Gregory and Sasha contrast？ 咁究竟咧咩叫 contrast 咧？即係意思係對比嘅。咁佢哋個對比係乜嘢咧？咁你會見到咧，佢阿爺其實頭先同佢講嘢都幾惡啦。佢呢度用咗個語言咧，就係話佢話 Gregory's words seemed harsh and fierce。OK， 咁你會見到咧，就係佢哋嘅性格係點樣咧？就會係一個咧就會係Gregory is an old man who is stern but kind. But Sasha is young and curious。咁樣咧就一個咧就係比較老啲啦，咁但係比較嚴厲啦，但係都好仁慈嘅。但係 Sasha 咧就好後生，同埋咧好 curious。咩叫好 curious 咧？即係非常之好奇嘅意思啦。好啦，跟住之後咧，接住就到 Why does Gregory mention the sun, moon and stars in order to make a point? Make a point 咧，即係去證明一樣嘢，去 prove 一樣嘢咁嘅意思。即係證明啲乜嘢咧？究竟佢想證明一啲prove 一樣嘢啦，係證明究竟係佢有啲乜嘢嘅論點要想說服佢個孫啦。因為佢個孫就話係佢哋，即係應該係佢哋都擁有個森林噶嘛。咁跟住佢就話哦 yes the moon would say the same to you boy and the sun and the stars perhaps， 即係可能都係咁樣啦。咁所以咧就係話佢下邊有講過話you might as well want to own them even though you don't even belong to yourself。咁究竟咧啲咩嘢係屬於邊個咧？其實就係應該係講話咧呢3樣嘢，佢想即係用個相反嘅語氣就係話其實咧月亮啦、太陽啦、星星啦，你係見到佢哋啦，但係其實係唔係屬於你嘅。咁所以嘅意思佢想證明一樣嘢咧，就係話呢啲3樣嘢都唔係屬於佢嘅咯，即係都唔係一樣可以擁有佢嘅嘢。咁你就會講咧，就係話he mentions the sun, moon and stars in order to prove to Sasha that they cannot be owned by anyone。就係話咧，佢提及呢個即係所有呢啲大自然嘅嘢咧，就係話去證明俾阿 Sasha 聽，佢即係呢啲咁樣嘅即係太陽啊、月亮啊、星星咧，都唔可以被任何人所擁有嘅。咁所以其實個森林都唔可以話真係即係唔可以真係話係可以俾邊一個人擁有咁嘅意思。第7 Why do you think Gregory takes hold of Sasha's arm and tells him to be quiet？ 點解咧？頭先我哋有講到咧，就係話因為佢發覺係乜嘢？有人發出即係啲沙沙聲，同埋有人係嚟緊啦。Footsteps approaching 就係話點解咧？係有啲 some dusty objects moving towards them 係應該係有人嚟緊咯，因為有 footsteps， 即係話咧係有啲聲音。咁好啦，點解啦？問你，咁你就會答翻咧係 This is because there is an unknown person approaching them， 即係因為咧係有一個人咧係即係有個不知名嘅人咧係即係走埋嚟佢度，所以咧佢哋個書唔好講嘢，睇睇係邊個先。好啦，然後咧接住到個 vocabulary 啦，就會係Baron 當然咧就會係指一個 one who owns all the land 嘅人啦。另外 bundle 咧 bundle 即係一束一紮咁嘅意思啦，咁就 several objects gathered together。 stoop 咧頭先我都有講過啦，即係踎低咁嘅意思啊，咁所以係 bend low。approaching 即係 coming 啦。dusky 咧就係指係 dim dark in colour， 即係好灰暗啦。好啦，我哋睇睇呢一個第11行個 there 呢個字啦。咁呢度見到咧就會係嗰個 there 啦。佢話第一題嗰個嘅 there 係指乜嘢咧？第11行呢個第11行嗰個 there， 咁係on their way home there。一開始只有講咗2個人啫嘛，咁所以咧係應該係 Gregory and Sasha。要加翻 apostrophe s，apostrophe s 個，因為 there 咧係他們的。咁第20行嗰個 his 咧就係應該係指the baron， 他的啦。咁另外咧到第32行嗰個嘅 you 咧就係應該係because I know you。嗱呢一個咧係佢話 There's many a tree that would say to me if it could talk。呢個就以下棵樹所講嘅嘢，咁而棵樹咧就其實只係講咗乜嘢咧？就係話如果我識你啊，你呢個 you 咧就係指 Sasha。咁 I don't know him 咧就係指 the baron。咁亦都擺翻落去啦，你會見到咧就會係應該記住嗰 there his 嗰啲咧喺考試嗰陣時你就一定要 mark 翻個 apostrophe s 落去啦。咁如果假如其他嗰啲咧就只係需要寫翻嗰個嘅名詞就 OK 啦。